Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with morsels of a thought number 1489 for you. I'm sorry I overslept. I um, we'll have to dive the chain one later. Um, let's see that. So I'm gonna lower this one more. Anyway, good morning. Uh, my goal is to entertain you a little bit um, with morsels of a thought of wisdom. Knowing the right thing to do is wisdom, and not doing it is not virtue. Doing it is virtue. So, um, we will try to bring more virtue into the world and impart some of this information that is called wisdom. Wisdom is like sculpted glass, though, and information is like grains of sand. So, anyway, um, yesterday was, in fact, I have to say, 1489. Today is the new year on the lunar calendar in the East Asian cultures. There is a new year that's recognized by many cultures, primarily. Sorry, I just woke up. Primarily by the Chinese, and we have lots of celebrations. And last night, I went to a friend invited me to a gathering at a Mennonite church, and the pastor and I spoke for a little short length. And he originally wasn't going to give a sermon at the end, but apparently he decided to later. So we had a sermon. It was a nice one before I left. And he said, do you notice that the Chinese have the two red strips of words in celebrations? If you've seen that in Chinese pictures, then you know. Uh, well, the first thing I thought of was the blood of the lamb, because in biblical culture, in the Christian but biblical culture, uh, Christianity, the blood of the lamb was spread over the doors of homes that would like protection from destruction. And this lecture was in Chinese yesterday as well. And I was able to help this pastor with some Mandarin words. And I thought to myself, I was very proud of myself. I thought, my goodness, I can actually help a pastor with Mandarin. And speaks Chinese, he spoke Cantonese. And so the word for destruction being something like the word for catastrophe, 灾难, 灾难. And we want we want wealth, and we want happiness, 福气. We want 福, and we want well, I would say love, but love is joy. What would we say? Um, I don't remember. Anyway, there are lots of Mandarin words. So I tried to check on the Mennonite belief system, and this was why the pastor kept saying to me that my Christianity didn't count because I was baptized as an infant, and I was baptized as a Catholic without my mother's permission. So um, I like to think that I have the protection that God grants to people who He deems uh, baptized or not. Um, I think a lot of people don't have to really worry about baptism because that's a stage of their belief system. And who is God? Well, God is not a who, and God cannot be defined. God is omnipresent. God is omnipotent. God is everywhere. So what I said to the pastor was, I actually don't go to any church. Church is in my heart, and I accept Jesus. And he said in his sermon later, he said that Jesus was like the lamb. The lamb was sacrificed in order to give the blood to put over the doors. Good morning. Good morning. Um, Homa StreamYard, and that the blood of the lamb was spread over the doors, so the lamb was sacrificed, and um, there is a kind of a connection to the red coloring of the doors. So, I'm sorry, no, there was a connection between Christ and the Lord Savior coming down from heaven to be sacrificed as though he were a lamb to the people to protect the people and for God to protect the people. Anyway, I would like to read from William J. Bennett, the Book of Virtues. We'll continue on with honesty and the injustice of mere suspicion, retold by Warren Horton Stewart. The Chinese folktale helps us appreciate the policy of innocent until proven guilty. We must guard against projecting our suspicions over onto others' characters and actions. A certain man lost an axe. He at once suspected the son of his neighbor had stolen it. When he saw the boy walking by, the boy looked like a fellow who had stolen an axe. When he listened to the boy's words, they sounded like those of a boy who had stolen an axe. All his actions and manners were those of a boy who had stolen an axe. Later, when digging a ditch, the man found the lost axe. The next day he saw again his neighbor's son, but in all the boy's manners and actions there was nothing like a boy who had stolen an axe. The boy had not changed, but the man himself had changed, and the only reason for this change lay in his suspicion. Suspicion can put something over you. In other words, um, in they have done uh, research in psychology and told people, um, let me see, there's a way. All right, that's good. StreamYard saw it. That's good. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Okay. The piece of string. Guy de Maupassant. This story of slander, said among the French peasantry, reminds us of the devastating consequences that one person's dishonesty can have on another's life. And I agree with that. Along all the roads around Goderville, peasants and their wives were coming in toward the town, for it was market day. There was a crowd in Goderville marketplace, a confusion of men and beasts, horns of oxen, long-napped tall hats of the richer peasants, and the women's headdresses rose above the surface of the throng. Voices, bawling, sharp and squeaky, were mingled in barbarous, never-ending clamor, dominated at times by the mighty guffaw of some broad-chested countryman having his joke, or by the long-drawn lowing of a cow tied up to the wall of a house. It all smelled of stables, milk, and manure, of hay and sweat, gave off, in fact, that terribly sour savor, human yet bestial, characteristic of workers in the fields. Master Holcorn, Hoshcorn of Brote, coming into Goderville, was making his way toward the marketplace, when he perceived on the ground a short piece of string. Master Hoshcorn, thrifty like every true Norman, thought that anything was worth picking up that could be put to any use, so, stooping painfully, for he suffered from rheumatism, he picked up the bit of thin cord and was was carefully rolling it up, when he observed Master Maladan, the saddler, standing in his doorway, looking at him. They had once had a difference about a halter, and owed each other a grudge, for both were by nature inclined to bear malice. Master Hookhorn was seized with a sort of shame at being thus seen by his enemy grabbing in the mud for a piece of string. He abruptly hid his spoil under his blouse, then put it in his trouser pocket, and pretended to be still looking on the ground for something he could not find. Finally he went off toward the market with his head poked forward, bent nearly double by his rheumatism. He was swallowed up at once in the slow-moving, noisy crowd, disputing over its interminable bargainings. Peasants were punching the cows, moving hither and thither, in perpetual fear of being taken in, and, not daring to make up their minds, scrutinizing the seller's eye to try and discover the deceit in the man and the blemish in his beast. The women, placing their great baskets at their feet, had taken out their fowls, which lay on the ground with legs tied together, eyes wild with fright, and crests all scarlet. They listened to the offers made, and held out for their prices with wooden, impassive faces. Then, suddenly deciding to take the bid, would scream after the customer as he slowly walked away, "Done with you, Mr. Anthime, you shall have it." Then, little by little, the market-place emptied, and the Angelus ringing midday, those who lived too far away straggled into the inns. At Jourdain's the big dining-room was crowded with guests, just as the huge courtyard was crowded with vehicles of every breed. Carts, cabriolets, wagonettes, tilburys, covered carts innumerable, yellow with mud, out of trim and patched, some raising their two shafts like arms to the sky, some with nose on the ground and tail in the air. Right up against the diners the immense fireplace, flaming brightly, and threw a mighty heat onto the backs of the right-hand row seated at the table. Three jacks were turning, garnished with chickens, pigeons, and legs of mutton, and a delectable delectable odor of roast meat and of gravy streaming over the well-browned crackling rose from the hearth, bringing joy to the heart and water to the mouth. All the aristocracy of the Clough dined at M. Jourdain's, innkeeper and horse-dealer, a shrewd fellow and a warm man. The dishes were passed and emptied, together with mugs of golden cider. Everyone told the story of his bargains and asked his neighbor about the crops. The weather was good for green stuff, but a little damp for corn. Suddenly, from the courtyard in front of the house came the roll of a drum. All but a few, too lazy to move, jumped up at once and flew to the doors and windows, their mouths still full and their napkins in their hands. Finishing off the roll of his drum, the town crier shouted in staccato tones, with a scansion of phrase peculiarly out of rhythm, "This is to inform the inhabitants of Goderville and all others present at the market that there was lost this morning on the Beauzeville road between 9 and 10 o'clock a black leather pocket-book containing 500 francs and some business papers. It should be returned to the town hall immediately, or to Master Fortuné Holbrecht at Manville. A reward of 20 francs is offered." The man went by, and presently the dull rumble of the drum was heard again, then the crier's voice fainter in the distance. Everyone began discussing the event, calculating the chances of Master Holbrecht's recovering or not recovering his pocketbook, and so the meal came to an end. They were finishing their coffee when the brigadier of gendarmes appeared at the door and asked, "Is Master Hochbaum of M.o.A.T. here?" Master Hochbaum, seated at the far end of the table, answered, "Here." "Master Harshcorn," proceeded the officer, "will you be so good as to come with me to the town hall? The mayor would like to speak to you." Surprised and uneasy, the peasant gulped down his cognac, rose, and stooping even more than in the morning, for the first steps after resting were always particularly painful, got himself started, repeating, "All right, I'm coming," and followed the sergeant. The mayor was awaiting him seated in an armchair. He was the notary of the district, a stout, serious man, full of pompous phrases. "Master Horschkorn," he said, "you were seen this morning to pick up on the Beausville road the pocketbook lost by Master Holbrecht of Manville." The peasant, in stupefaction, gazed at the mayor, intimidated at once by this suspicion which lay heavy upon him without his comprehending it. "Me! Me! Pick up that pocketbook?" "Yes, you." "Oh, on my word of honor, I didn't. Why, I didn't even know about it." "You were seen." "Seen? I? Who saw me?" "Mr. Maladin, the saddler." Then the old man remembered and understood. Reddening with anger, he said, "Ah, he saw me, that animal. Well, what he saw me pick up was this string. Look here, Mr. Monsieur le Maire." And rummaging in his pocket, he pulled out the little piece of string. But the mayor shook his head incredulously. "You won't make me believe, Mr. Hochford, that Monsieur Mandelin, a trustworthy man, took that piece of string for a pocketbook." The enraged peasant raised his hand, spat solemnly to show his good faith, and repeated, "It's God's truth, all the same, the sacred truth, Monsieur le Maire. There, on my soul and honor, I say it again." The mayor proceeded. "After having picked up the article in question, you even went on searching in the mud to make sure a coin or two mightn't have fallen out." The poor old fellow choked with indignation and fear. "To say such things! How can anyone, telling lies like that, to undo an honest man, how can anyone?" Protest as he would, he was not believed. They confronted him with Monsieur Mandelin, who repeated and substantiated his story. The two abused each other for a whole hour. By his own request, Master Hochkorn was searched. Nothing was found on him. At last the mayor, thoroughly puzzled, dismissed him, warning him that he was going to give notice to the public prosecutor and take his instructions. The news had spread. As he went out of the town hall, the old man was surrounded, and all sorts of serious, remarking questions were put to him. I'm sorry. Uh, but no one showed the slightest. Excuse me. I'm going to get some water. Dead air, dead air. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is marching up the vintage where the grapes are. Oh, wait. Very sorry about that. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, goodness gracious, sorry. We have a few more pages. No one showed the slightest indignation on his side. He began to tell the story of the piece of string. They did not believe him. Everybody laughed. He went on, stopped by everyone, stopping everyone he knew to tell his story over and over again, protesting, showing his pockets turned inside out to prove that he had nothing on him. The only answer he got was, "Get along, you sly old dog." He began to feel angry, worrying himself into a fever of irritation. miserable at not being believed, at a loss what to do, and continually repeating his story. Night came on. It was time to go home. He set out with three neighbors, to whom he showed the spot where he had picked up the piece of string, and the whole way home he kept talking of his misadventure. In the evening he made a round of the village of M.o.aT to tell everybody about it. He came across unbelievers only. He was ill all night. The next day, at about 1 o'clock, Marius Pommel, a laborer at Master Britton's, a farmer at Yamoville, restored the pocket-book and its contents to Master Holdbrecht of Manville. This man declared that he had found the object on the road, but not being able to read, he had taken it home and given it to his master. The news spread through the neighborhood. Master Hochkorn was informed of it and started off at once on a round to tell his story all over again with its proper ending. It was a triumph. What knocked me over, he said, was not so much the thing itself, but that charge of lying. There's nothing hurts a man so much as being thought a liar. The whole day long he talked of his adventure, telling it to people he met on the roads, to people drinking at the inns, and even at the church on the following Sunday. He stopped perfect strangers to tell him about it. He was easy in his mind now, and yet there was something that bothered him, though he could not exactly arrive at what it was. People had an amused look while they were listening to him. They did not seem convinced. He felt as if a lot of tattle was going on behind his back. On the Tuesday following of the following week, he went off to Goderville market, and urged thereto solely by the desire to tell his story. Maladin, standing at his door, began to laugh as he went past. Why? He began his story of a farmer of Criquetot who did not let him finish, but giving him a dig in the pit of the stomach, shouted in his face, "Get along, you old rogue," and turned back. Master Rochecorn stopped short, confused, the more and more uneasy. Why was he being called an old rogue? We'll find this out next week and continue with this story and with the Dr. Jing. Thank you so much for coming. I am hoping to impart some bit of wisdom to you, and in this case, we see that this man is being called an old rogue even after the pocketbook was restored. So what happens is that a little bit of slander goes a long way to hurt somebody forever. I'm gonna say that is not a good thing for us to do. We need to make this world a better place where we can trust people with virtue and not lay on them suspicion, just as the law says, innocent until proven guilty in my country. So far, so good. Okay, old kindergarten.